Okay. Congratulations, you have assisted in a successful surgery. The doctor has just finished closing up and she or he says you can wake Fluffy up from anesthesia. So what does that mean for you? It means it's almost time for lunch, which is great. And also we are ready to disconnect from our isoflurane. So remember, we have our iso here, we have our oxygen here. So we want to flush this line because just when we have the iso turned off, that doesn't mean that there's not some residual iso hanging out in these tubes and hanging out in this bag. So how do we eliminate the iso from the tubes in the bag? First, I'm gonna say stop, don't touch anything. The reason being is we have our little thing here. This is what we're gonna use to flush. But if we press this button and we're still connected to our patient, this is going to push a whole bunch of oxygen through this tube to the patient. So if we're flushing really heavy on this, a big burst of oxygen is going to go to your patient, and there's a possibility that the patient's lungs are not going to be able to handle the amount of oxygen that you're flushing through, and you could explode their lungs. I know that it sounds really scary because it is. This is very important. You need to make sure that before you touch anything on this machine, before you touch this, before you touch again anything on this machine, this here, which was connected to your tube, I'll grab a little tube for reference. Before you touch anything, you need to make sure that you are disconnected from your tube, from your ET tube. This needs to be disconnected. So now that we're disconnected, what do? You can flush here. There's a couple ways that you can do it. The way that I like to do it is do a little flush here. I put my thumb on the top, put a little flush here, flush out your bag. Make sure that this is pointing downwards, not to your face, because you'll get a big rush of iso to your face. A couple times, flushing out, getting all that iso out of the machine. Now, you need to make sure that before you reconnect your patient, you have your iso off. This needs to be on the off. So remember, when you're off, you have the click. Listen, you're off. Your oxygen is on. If you have your oxygen off and you go to connect your patient, what happens? Your patient no longer has access to oxygen and your patient can die. So it's very important that if you have this at any point connected to a tube that is inside your patient, that you have the oxygen turned on. So our oxygen is turned back on. Our iso is off. Our tubes have been flushed. So now we're just going to hang out. We're going to put our oxygen tube back onto Fluffy, and we're going to leave him hanging around on our monitor. Our monitor is not on our invisible patient right now. We will go to that secondly, but we need to make sure that we're just chilling on our oxygen, still monitoring your patient very closely, because this is a very important time for the patient. Make sure that we are monitoring closely, make sure our oxygen is on, make sure our pop-off valve is open, and our iso is off. We're just waiting for the patient to wake up. Okay, bye.